Let's go to El Salvador now and take a closer look at the president's crackdown there on gangs, imposing emergency security measures and giving police sweeping powers.
To be the largest prison in the Americas with a capacity for 40,000 people.
Quite a significant operation in Soyapango.
El Salvador was plagued by brutal street gangs for decades, with previous administrations failing to dismantle them despite aggressive efforts. Security forces arrested gang members and deployed waves of police and soldiers to reclaim control of urban areas. And after use of some secret tactics, they finally made it happen. But still, what suddenly happens to change this? Let's find out. In March 2022, the Salvadoran government, led by President Bukele, started on an unprecedented crackdown on gangs. This crackdown, driven by a state of emergency, has allowed the administration to pursue an aggressive strategy against gang violence and criminal activity. The state of emergency was initially declared in response to a series of brutal gang-related massacres that resulted in 87 deaths. Following these events, the Salvadoran legislature approved a one-month state of emergency. Since then, these measures have been extended continuously for 20 months, with expectations for further extension in December 2023. The emergency measures introduced by Bukele's administration were extraordinary. They suspended certain constitutional rights, including the right to a fair trial and freedom of movement. The emergency laws also expanded the state's power to arrest individuals and intercept communications. These provisions have significantly altered the dynamics of law enforcement in El Salvador. Security forces were granted the ability to detain suspects quickly and on a larger scale than ever before. This change allowed them to execute a more intense and rapid response to gang activity, bypassing traditional legal protocols. During the initial 2 months of this crackdown, over 33,000 people were arrested. The scale and speed of these arrests overwhelmed the gangs. Without the ability to effectively communicate or coordinate their operations, gangs struggled to maintain their control over extortion and drug trafficking activities. The rapid dismantling of their command structures and the disruption of their hierarchical systems led to a notable reduction in gang-related activities. The success of this crackdown has prompted discussions among analysts about why such extreme measures have proven effective after years of ineffective attempts to curb gang violence. The key factors contributing to this success include the aggressive legal measures, a broader interpretation of gang affiliation, and the consolidation of political power within Bukele's administration. These elements combine to create a formidable challenge for the gangs, significantly impeding their operations and weakening their influence. Since its implementation, detainees can be held indefinitely on vague charges without an arrest warrant or concrete evidence. They lose the right to a court hearing within 72 hours of arrest. Lawyers and civil society organizations have reported being unable to speak to those detained. Arrests have been based on uncorroborated intelligence, rumors, and information from social media profiles. This approach has proven to be both the most troubling and the most effective aspect of the crackdown. The Bukele administration has introduced new laws aimed at keeping gang members in prison. In March 2022, the Legislative Assembly passed legal reforms that increased jail sentences for gang membership and eliminated the possibility of house arrest for those belonging to terrorist groups. Gangs are classified as terrorist organizations under Salvadoran law. The reforms also lowered the age to 12 for which people can be tried for gang-related crimes. Existing anti-gang laws were reformed to apply to a broader range of targets. On March 30, 2022, the Legislative Assembly modified the law regarding unlawful association. This expanded its scope to include anyone who promotes, helps, facilitates, or favors the activities of a criminal organization. The law, which was already broad, now allows authorities to arrest not just suspected gang members, but also aspiring members and suspected collaborators. The government has not provided clear definitions of these positions, nor the methodology for determining who fits these categories. Nonetheless, this has been a major pretext for arrests under the state of emergency. In January 2023, Human Rights Watch and Cristosal reported that 39,000 of the then 61,000 people incarcerated under the state of emergency had been arrested for unlawful association. Previous attempts to use this law faced legal challenges in the courts. Police were concerned about potential prosecution if they arrested suspects arbitrarily. A police official in San Miguel mentioned consulting 2 judges to ensure they would not face legal repercussions for signing arrest warrants based on vague charges. After receiving assurances, their unit proceeded to arrest hundreds of suspects. Bukele's administration has exerted near total control over various government parts to facilitate these measures. Bukele's party, Nuevas Ideas, used its supermajority in the Legislative Assembly to enact and prolong the state of emergency. Legislators loyal to Bukele passed the legal reforms related to the crackdown. In late 2021, the Legislative Assembly purged the judiciary, firing dozens of judges and appointing over 150 replacements, many with links to the Bukele administration, according to Revista Factum. The courts have remained silent amid allegations of state abuses, especially regarding due process. The Attorney General's office, also aligned with Bukele, has worked with security forces to facilitate mass arrests based on flimsy, little, or no evidence. The state of emergency in El Salvador has led to sweeping legal changes impacting constitutional rights and judicial processes. This allows arrests without a warrant, holding detainees longer without a court appearance, and denying them a defense lawyer or information on their detention. The government can intercept civilian communications and restrict movement through roadblocks and checkpoints. Legal reforms increased prison sentences for gang membership and allow minors as young as 12 to be tried for gang-related charges. The reforms permit faster arrests and keep gang members and collaborators in jail longer without formal charges or a trial. Ordinary Salvadorans have lost legal rights guaranteed by the Constitution. The broader interpretation of gang laws has led to the arrest of people with tenuous gang connections. This includes aspiring gang members and ambiguously defined collaborators. This has inflated arrest figures and depleted extended gang networks. The judiciary was purged in 2021, and new judges were appointed, many aligned with the government. The government claims to have arrested 52,541 MS-13 members, 13,682 Barrio 18 Sureños members, and 10,741 Barrio 18 Revolucionarios members. This includes homeboys, chiqueos, and collaborators. Among those arrested were 1,132 gang leaders, including 945 from MS-13. The number of armed gang groups has dropped to 53 from 97 in 2022. Of these, 43 are MS-13, 6 are Barrio 18 Sureños, and 4 are Barrio 18 Revolucionarios. Despite these arrests, 36% of gang members and collaborators, over 42,000, remain at large. More than half of the detainees under the state of emergency are not fully fledged gang members. Homeboys accounted for 32,331 arrests, compared to 41,733 suspected collaborators and 3,435 chiqueos. The clearest indicator of decreased gang presence in El Salvador is the absence of the MS-13 and Barrio 18 in neighborhoods once dominated by these gangs. For decades before the state of emergency, gangs exerted significant territorial control in urban areas across the country. They relied on a network of low-level members and collaborators, including lookouts and informants, to prevent unwanted intrusions and to establish rules for those living in communities under their control. These rules ranged from restrictions on movement to prohibiting common delinquency and forbidding grave crimes, like beep gang members, often dished out harsh punishments to rule breakers, despite breaking their own rules. They also settled disputes between residents instead of the police or other government authorities. Residents could face reprisals for interacting with authorities. In extreme cases, the police did not enter territories where MS-13 and the two factions of Barrio 18 had significant influence. This situation has changed radically following the state of emergency. Insight Crime visited 15 former gang strongholds in San Salvador, Apopa, Soyapango, Ilopango, Mexicanos, Ciudad Delgado, San Julián, Tonacatepeque, and San Miguel, where gang structures have almost entirely ceased to operate. Now, Residents say they no longer face constant surveillance from gangs or strict rules on moving between different communities. They have reclaimed recreational and community spaces previously used by gangs and have started new community projects without gang resistance for the first time in years. A police officer in San Salvador's historic center, where expansive informal markets were once a hive of gang activity, said gang members disappeared just 2 weeks into the state of emergency. Another security official said schools now house minors linked to gangs and may provide the only public space where remnants of these groups can still operate. Operating these rackets required a network of gang members and collaborators to patrol territories and collect payments. Previous crackdowns targeted gang members, but the current administration has focused on broader networks, making it harder for gangs to operate criminal economies while weathering state crackdowns. Before the state of emergency, gangs primarily extorted small and medium-sized businesses, including street vendors, shop owners, bus operators, and taxi drivers. The gangs based their extortion fees on perceived wealth, ranging from a few dollars per day for street vendors to thousands of dollars for larger businesses. Residents in former gang strongholds said they no longer received extortion threats. Some residents said they had not seen any gang retaliation for not paying extortion fees during the state of emergency. Extortion in the transport sector also appears to have halted. Bus company representatives in San Salvador reported that gangs stopped charging extortion in the days following the onset of the state of emergency. A bus company owner who previously paid around $6,000 monthly to the 3 main gang factions stopped paying rent to the MS-13 immediately after the crackdown began. Payments to the Barrio 18 stopped in the following days and weeks. The inability to maintain extortion rackets represents a financial blow to the gangs. In 299 of those cases, the perpetrators were identified as members of the MS-13 and Barrio 18. Now, whatever your thoughts in the comment section down below. And for more such content in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Until then, keep exploring.